Okay.
When death happens, the thought process is entirely different. Because when death happens, we're thinking, how soon can we get this body under the ground? Achieving a same-day burial in the US for a Muslim is very rare.
Oh.
Back home, it's common. Yeah.
Okay,
Same-day
okay,
burial.
okay,
In fact, even my grandmother's situation
Back home by
baffled so
sita
many
mambo
people.
inakuanga imemalizwa.
Yeah. Back home, if you died before noon, especially in places like Mombasa, utazikwa the same day.
How can I or how can we as a community help alleviate the pain from that family? Because the thing about death is that no matter how many deaths you experience, each one of them has its own experience.
This is the One Mic Show. So Mika, I mean, of course, Omosh, you have talked about Mchango, but whenever you hear death in the diaspora, for you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear mtu fulani amefariki? If it's a friend of yours, if it's a family member, if it's anyone, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Maybe for me, it's usually like, whoa. It knocks me out very badly. And you guys have seen me how I've handled deaths of people who are friends. Like, it knocks me very badly because I don't think I'm ready to start burying my friends or burying people that I know. And when I first hear that somebody has died, for me, the first thought is usually with the family. How are they handling it? Like, especially with somebody I know, I'd be like, oh, sasa watoi. Because people who I know have young kids. And people who I know right now, if they're losing somebody, they're either losing their parent or they're losing their partners or themselves. And on that occasion, unfortunately, it might be a kid. So for me, it's usually more of the compassion of, damn, like how? It's shock. How did that happen, right? The immediate shock comes out, and then after that is when I start thinking, okay, nini nafanyika? Tunapanga? Nini na happen? Like, get into that mode of what's happening. If there's a group, it's a committee that's been formed and it's already helping, then fine. Sit back. If they need contribution, send contribution. If they need any kind of help, where we can help. But mostly is usually, how is the family faring on with that? That sadness, then how's the family handling that? And then trying to see how can I or how can we as a community help alleviate the pain from that family? Because the thing about death is that no matter how many deaths you experience, each one of them has its own experience. I try quite the same.
Absolutely. So, Mika, asante sana. Now, before we go to Uno Mike, of course, you're tuned into the One Mic Show. We are talking about what happens when Kenyans die in the diaspora. Who does what? And I can see Warimu is already tuned in from Kali. Karibu sana, Warimu. Anasema this is a great topic. Just this year in my small circle here, we've had 5 harambes. Warimu also wants us to touch on disability insurance. Someone could sustain a career-ending injury in their prime earning years. So, Warimu, asante sana. Now, want to come to you, Uno Mike, real quick. When death happens in the diaspora, a friend, family member, someone, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
So usually the first thing that comes to my mind is, what is the plan?
Okay.
And that varies.
Okay.
Atazikwa wapi?
Okay.
And also depends on the individual, because there's some people who don't have anyone here. So, and if you don't have a wife, you don't have a kids, that means that at some point probably the parents or the mother or the father wants the body back home.
Okay.
Because usually that is depending, okay, who is it? Okay, what's the plan?
Yeah.
If it's somebody who has got people here, again, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Atazikwa huku ama mwili itasafirishwa.
Yes.
Right? So then the next step is, okay, the next step is what's going on, or were there any plans that were laid? Like, what was the plan? Did they have a plan? If not, now you have to start scrambling, because it becomes a community effort.
Okay.
And by that community effort now, we harken back to what Omosh was saying, because unfortunately, even being in these very many chamas and whatever, your social capital is gonna take you very
Goes a long
far.
way.
Yes.
And your social capital will take you far.
And by social capital, do you mean how involved you are within the community?
How? Yes.
Okay.
If you're
How involved?
if you how involved, yeah. Like
Yeah.
if you're
Napia, how is your relationship with people?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
That is
fair enough.
your social capital.
Yeah.
So if you're a madhogodhanio person,
Yeah.
kazi yako tu ni kuswindle watu,
Yeah.
lakini uko na nini watu
Then that becomes a
oh,
problem.
it becomes a problem.
So,
But
so
you know,
people will sit silent.
You
of
know,
course.
it's interesting you say that thing about swindling.
Yes.
Because there are some people who we know personally who walikuwa hapo kwa swindle, but people came out for them. But anyway,
But then
carry on.
But then they might have.
You have to consider.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
consider labda brother yake ana social capital aina gani ama sister yake ama friend yake ama nani.
Okay, I hear
Yes.
you. I hear you.
So
Like,
lakini unajua pia kuna swindlers who maybe they swindle but they still have some social capital. For one
No,
reason
of
or
course,
another.
of course.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're not, but you know, like it now it depends on what side of the fence you're sitting on, what
Yeah.
side of the mirror or
Divide.
cage you divide your seat, you're standing or seeing it from.
Yeah.
Right. So, and usually then that now begins the process of okay. Kama kuna wife or ex-wife,
Okay.
or if they're kids, like
the kids
it becomes very tricky and it becomes very dicey depending on the person involved, and especially a person of the Christian faith. Let us just say that.
Yeah. Now talking about faith, you know, like on our side.
Yes.
who is
Sasa, our side? Sisi wa Islam.
Okay.
When death happens, the thought process is entirely different. Because when death happens, we're thinking, how soon can we get this body under the ground?
Yes.
Meaning, can we do it before sunset?
Not necessarily before sunset. Before sunset is rare. I know you were there and witnessed my my grandmother's
yes.
burial here.
Yes.
That was very rare. She died very early in the morning. And by I think it was by 5
3.
before sunset.
I think we buried her by 3.
No, it wasn't 3.
Or was it 4?
It was after Asr prayers, after the 4 o'clock prayers. So it might have been because
It
I
was
remember
before 5.
I remember when we were living in the graveyard, I was seeing, you know, like the sun
Setting?
set. Yeah. So it was around that time. It was around 5. So
Okay.
when we face death, you know, like, and that's the closest death that I've experienced here, and also I've lost my cousin in Delaware. In Delaware, my cousin was buried within I think it was within 72 hours. So it took
So
up
at least,
it
so
took
at least
3
they
days.
gave you kidogo time.
Yes, you know, like.
But what's the difference?
So the thing is, achieving a same day burial in the US for a Muslim is very rare.
Oh.
Back home, it's common. Yeah,
Okay,
same day
okay,
burial.
okay,
In fact,
okay.
even my grandmother's situation.
Back home by
baffled so
sita
many
mambo
people.
inakuanga imemalizwa.
Yeah, back home, if you died before noon, especially in places like Mombasa,
Correct.
utazikwa the same day.
Yes.
Utazikwa either
Yes.
after the 4
Yeah.
o'clock prayer,
Yeah.
or maybe sometimes before after the Maghrib prayer. So out here, when one of us dies, the first thing we're thinking about, there are no WhatsApp groups, there are no michangos, is how soon can we get this body under the ground? And there's multiple things that have to be done before the body is gotten under the ground. Lazima mwili washwe. Yeah, there's a ritual bathing that's done, you know, like before the body is put under the ground. Now, back home, most mosques have a space to do this. Now, out here, because of regulation and everything, it's certain designated mosques. So that's the one thing that I came to learn. Yes.
Very interesting. I learned that
Yes.
through when grandma died.
Yes. So when grandma
So
died,
it's not just any mosque.
it's not any mosque.
No.
Yeah, it's not any mosque. There's certain designated mosques that are allowed to do that because you're handling a dead body.
Okay.
And then if someone dies at home, there's a process that some reporting has to be done. You cannot just take them
Via
from
the
home.
county, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever jurisdiction you live
Whatever
in.
jurisdiction has different laws, but generally speaking, you can't take the body from home to a gravesite like what we would do back in Kenya.
254,
Yes, if someone dies at home, ni kutoka nyumbani, watu wanakuja, maiti inaoshwa hapo nyumbani, ama
They
inapelekwa
wrap
msikitini, and then it's taken there.
out
Yeah,
in
procession.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that can't happen here. So here you have to learn In fact, right now, there's a new group that we formed for Kenya Muslims in the DMV. We are mapping out the different clusters and which are the closest places, in case you're faced with death. Because you have to have a place where the body is going to be washed. And then there also has to be, a grave site. There's now multiple Muslim grave sites in the area. So generally speaking,
Muslim cemeteries.
Muslim cemeteries, yes. So generally speaking, the first thing we think of is how we bury. We don't bury with a coffin. We simply bury with a white cloth.
A shroud.
So ni kazi rahisi. So we think about how to put the body in the ground. Then everything else now follows. You remember when you came from my grandmother's burial, there's usually an announcement that's made before people leave the gravesite. If there's anyone who the dead person owed money or anything of that sort, please let us know. The reason why that's announced is because debts have to be cleared before inheritance is distributed. And this means also unsecured debt. Credit card loans, by American law, unsecured debt disappears when someone dies. But now in Islam, there's no debt that disappears. Yes. So if there was any debt that's known, it first has to be paid before.
So who does the paying?
So like a bank loan for if
State.
somebody had a bank loan for a car.
If
That one has to be
if
sorted.
there's any known debt,
Any known debt.
if there's any known
Okay.
debt,
Okay.
and of course this is the US, Islamic law doesn't apply,
Right,
but the
but-
families now try to fulfill this before
As
now
close as possible.
Yes, before inheritance kicks in, is distributed. Yeah, so
Meaning before the estate is divided.
before the estate is divided. Yeah, so
Okay.
debts, two things have to be done. Debts have to be paid, and funeral expenses. Funeral expenses. If the family, for example, were not able to afford, if this person still has money, that money has to come from there for the funeral expenses, and then now everything else follows. So very different process. When it comes to death within the Muslim community, wherever we are in the world, whether we are in Kenya, we do not transport bodies. Yeah, nikifa hapa, mina ziko hapa. If I'm on vacation in Spain and I happen to die
Yuko
there,
huko, yeah,
na
you
kuna
remember you telling
Waislamu
us
huko.
that.
Yes.
They will pick me up and they will bury me, and then everything else will follow. A bit unusual, from what people are normally used to, but that happens, and then everything else follows.
For Christians, it's very unusual.
Yeah.
Let us
Correct.
say that.
But Ali, these cases that I have seen where, let's say, and I'll give an example of one that I know of.
Hata si Dubai kuna mwili tulipeleka umeleta
Yeah,
hapo
yeah,
Islam.
there are rare cases.
That's what I was going to ask. Kind
Yeah.
of like what Mika was saying was like in this particular case, this person was, I think they were a pilot na waliaga in the UK, lakini walirudishwa nyumbani back to Kenya.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's a Muslim community in the UK. So what is it that would make that particular one different, or is it also family kicks in, ama kuna kakitu, or what?
So it's not forbidden to transport the body, but the general idea is that this body has to go inside the ground as quickly as is practically possible.
So the whole idea is efficiency, because also storage of body is expensive. Like kutoa burden to kwa family, sindio? Make it quick as possible iishe.
Yes, it's to make it as efficient as possible. And in cases where, maybe it's a wealthy family or it's a situation, come a pilot, they will transport the body. Yeah, that is okay. But in the general sense, when that time arrives, there's a process that starts immediately. And part of this is to give the family also a chance to give the family a chance to grieve, because remember, with the more the time passes by, there are so many things that are happening. So it's generally speaking, and the interesting thing when you look at African culture, and part of the reason why I also feel Islam was able to gel very easily within African cultures, when you consider General Ogola, who said that he was gonna be buried, using traditional Luo culture.
Correct.
People were asking if he's a Muslim, and that's because the traditional way
Yes.
Traditional way of how Luos did it was also actually, a very chap thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
To add cukes, this is what I learned. Cukes. Ukikuva leo, unatupa msituni.
Correct, yes. The forest, yeah.
Yeah,
That
so-
was
Which is the
common,
same
back
thing.
then,
Like, I mean,
yes.
when you say it is like, mambo ni chap, you keep it moving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not until tuliletewa Biblia tukaanza kuambiwa mambo 45. Carry on.
And we're going to talk about the religion
and
part.
I think also here the elongation of days to bury Pia, it's more dependent on the status of the family and the wealth of the family.
Yeah.
Because ukiangalia usually unasikianga nani alikufa anazikwa kesho ama anazikwa kesho kutwa, like you know the families families zingine unaona kuna like people expect people who have money, they expect the funeral thing the funeral to be grateful and long, like the whole process of mourning and everything. But I know for us, kathos, what it usually is like they will do a mass for you. If you're in Nairobi, they'll do a mass for you in your Nairobi Nini church. And then when you go home, the church in Ocha is the one that's going to bury. But the church that you usually go to, you have to have a mass there.
Okay.
Before they take you to be buried.
Now, Atieno Jimbo says, kwa hiyo Muislamu has to be sure to have manageable debt. When it comes to the debt situation, things are very elaborate. Everything has to be written. Even ikikupatia loan, it's supposed to be written and there has to be at least, it's usually at least 3 witnesses. To that debt.
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
Yes. Any kind of debt.
So aka kitabu, it's like your little ledger.
Yeah.
Umeandikisha so that okay.
So it has to be written, and then the terms of the terms of the loan, whatever you've agreed upon, even if it's pay me whenever you can. And then there has to be 2-3 witnesses. So typically, when someone, tuseme Ali amekufa, and someone comes and claims akona debt, sometimes the family will just pay, but in some cases they're entitled to ask,
where was it written?
Where was it written? And who, who are the witnesses to confirm that the debt was taken. And actually this system, it sieves out people who did not plan, who are planning not to pay you. Kawaida ukichukua deni, there are people who take debts and they have plans not to pay you. So ukifika mambo ya kuandikiana, whoever was planning not to pay you will disappear.